Just yesterday in an interview, you said fundamentally there's a choice to be made. You can't be both for Donald Trump and for the Constitution. You have to choose.
Yeah.
A vote for Donald Trump is unconstitutional, anti-American.
Well, he won't support and uphold the Constitution. We've already seen what happened. He is the only president in American history who attempted to overturn an election, who attempted to seize power, to stay in power after he had lost. And the reason that we didn't have a much more serious crisis was because there were people around him who stopped him, because there were people around the country, state officials, for example, who stopped him, who did not yield to the pressure that he put on them to change votes from Biden to Trump. We won't have that safeguard again. And he's so dangerous. If you have a president who is unwilling to abide by the rulings of the courts, who's unwilling to uphold the Constitution, then there are no guardrails who can stop him.
You've said we're sort of sleepwalking into dictatorship in the United States. Dictatorship. Is that what we would have if we reelect Donald Trump?
I think it's a very, very real threat and concern. And I don't say any of that lightly. And frankly, it's painful for me as someone who, has spent her whole life in Republican politics, who grew up as a Republican, to watch what's happening to my party and to watch the extent to which Donald Trump himself has, basically determined that the only thing that matters is him, his power, his success. And that is not somebody you can entrust with the power of the presidency.
It seems crazy to ask this and even crazier to fathom it. But do you believe if Donald Trump were elected next year that he would try to stay in office beyond a second term? That he would never leave office?
There's no question.
You think he would try to stay in power forever?
Absolutely. I mean, he's already done it once. And in fact, if you look at what he did in the run-up to January 6th in terms of his pressure on the vice president not to count legitimate electoral votes, his pressure on the Department of Justice, on state officials, and then refusing to send help when the Capitol was under attack, he's already attempted to seize power. And he was stopped, thankfully, and for the good of the nation and the republic. But he said he will do it again. He's expressed no remorse for what he did.
What about those people who say, well, okay, fine, but there were checks and balances. We have the two co-equal branches of Congress. We had a handful of individuals at the Justice Department. The former vice president refused to go along, so we'll be all right.
Well, I think that...
Can we survive another... Can America survive Donald Trump?
That's a really, the notion that we would be okay, I think, is naive. Because if you look at, for example, the Republicans who are in control of Congress today, they are collaborating with Donald Trump. You cannot count on a House of Representatives led by somebody like Mike Johnson to stop this president. You can't count on a Senate of Josh Hawley's and Mike Lee's to stop Donald Trump.
I was going to ask you about that because I read this book. It was written well before the latest speaker's race. You devote many, many pages to this previously sort of unknown Congressman Mike Johnson, and you single him out as somebody who was, quote, destructive and who played a big role in misleading other members of your party. And now this Mike Johnson is Speaker of the House. What did you think when you saw this is who your former colleagues elected to the speakership?
I think that it's dangerous for the country. I think that many of them did not understand in detail the role that he'd played. Mike was a friend of mine. We were elected together. But Mike consistently throughout this post-election period was suggesting things that he knew to have no basis in fact, no basis in law, no basis in the Constitution, and advocating that members of the House get on board with helping Donald Trump to overturn the election.
If we were to rerun the exact same scenario that happened in 2020, but happened in 2024 with Mike Johnson with the Speaker's gavel, what do you think would happen?
I think that it is too dangerous to even contemplate going down that path, partly because they've all had practice now. What happened in 2020 and January of 2021, in many ways, they can look at as a practice run. And they know now what it would take, in fact, to attempt to completely unravel the foundations of our republic.
You said the Republican Party of today has made a choice, has not chosen the Constitution. Do you think it would be better for Democrats to regain control of Congress in 2024?
I think that this is a moment where a couple of things are really important. One is, as we talked about, Mike Johnson and the Republicans cannot be in the majority in January of 2025. The House of Representatives may well be called on to determine the outcome of an election if it's thrown into the House.
I mean, this is just crazy stuff. You're Liz Cheney.
Right.
You were previously known as one of the most conservative members of Congress. You're the daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney, and you're saying it would be safer for the country if Republicans weren't in control of the House.
I think what we have seen is that you cannot count on this group of elected Republicans to uphold their oaths to the Constitution. But what this moment also requires, Savannah, is that people come together across party lines, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, to stand for the Constitution. And that's why this election is so crucially important.
You write that. You say every one of us, Republican, Democrat, Independent, must work and vote together. So I'll put it to you very plainly. Will you vote for President Biden if Donald Trump is on the other side of the ticket?
We don't know yet who the nominees are going to be. Certainly, I hope that the Republicans don't nominate Donald Trump.
But if they do?
But I will never vote for Donald Trump, and I will do whatever it takes to make sure that Donald Trump is defeated
including
in 2024.
a vote for Biden?
I will do whatever it takes.
Well, I know how deeply you feel about this. When you look at the train and you see some of these polls, and in a matchup between Trump and Biden, right now it is showing that it is Trump who wins, not just national polls, but in key battleground states. Do you wish that the Democrats had nominated someone other than Biden? Do you feel he is the best chance to defeat Donald Trump?
I think we have to have the very best players on the field in order to ensure that Donald Trump is not elected again. And I think about this as a mother. I think about this as somebody who, it very much is an open question whether our kids are going to grow up in a country that is characterized by a peaceful transfer of power.
So is Biden that person, or do you think it should be someone else?
We'll have to see what happens, and we'll have to see who is nominated. But the single most important issue is making sure that Donald Trump does not have that awesome power of the presidency again.
Just real quick, I keep thinking when I was reading your book about who is persuadable at this point. You call it a cult of personality on the Trump side. Okay, fine. So if you're in the cult, you're not going to be voting for anyone but Trump. And then you have people on the other side, they'll vote for the Democrats. This is a sliver of people who think, okay, I may not have loved Trump. I'm tired of his antics, but I'm worried about the border. I'm worried about crime. And I think Biden's too old. What do you say to them? They think that a Trump vote is, it'll end up being all right, maybe not pleasant, but it'll be all right.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that's a real problem. And I think that the challenge is to make sure that those people understand and recognize that a Trump vote is not acceptable. I hope that there are options and alternatives that reflect the important challenges that we're facing and that reflect leadership to meet those challenges. But that choice can never be Donald Trump, because a vote for Donald Trump may mean the last election that you ever get to vote in. And again, I don't say that lightly, and I think it's heartbreaking that that's where we are. But people have to recognize that a vote for Donald Trump is a vote against the Constitution.
Real quickly, you have not ruled out running for president yourself. Do you envision something where you run with the Democrat and do some kind of unity ticket?
I'm going to decide over the course of the next couple of months, and it will certainly depend upon where it looks like things are going with the nominations of both parties. But again, I think it's a moment where people have to be willing to put partisanship aside and say the future of the country demands that we save the republic, and we're never going to get the chance to debate all the other really important issues if we allow Donald Trump the power to unravel the very foundations of our Constitution.